Jet or Kirk.
My the reason I'm so bitter about kickers is I had one of my greatest games in college, my college career. I had like 3 sacks in one game, and the field goal kicker at Arkansas State kicked a 66-yard field goal. And guess who? They lift everybody. They lift the kicker up, and he gets his picture in the paper because he kicked a field goal. So I've never been able to let that go.
You've been bitter ever since.
He comes in one play and kicks the ball. I get 3 sacks after an exhausting attempt to sack the quarterback. Do I get my picture on the front page? No.
Well, that's because you're a lineman.
This Weasley ass kicker gets lifted up and on the front page. So yeah, I'm still bitter. All right, are we good to go?
Yes, sir.
Like they're just gonna kick.
All right.
Those of you that just joined, what I want to do is I'm going to focus on rule. If you got your rule book handy, Rule 7 to Article 5, and we're on paragraph B, which Beltran just pointed out is page 59. And I've got Matt Miller, our current CFOA president, and our DFOA rules guy, Scott Lewis, handy in case I say something that may not be accurate. But what I want to focus on tonight, I should point out before I dive into this, I was planning on doing something with the replay guys. That is going to be next weekend. So I apologize, those of you that were focused on wanting to hear about replay tonight. I've got Mike Contreras and Claire Gossman on next weekend to talk. They're communicator and the replay guy at the college level, and I'm going to have them just kind of talk through what the inner workings of working with the replay booth, what that looks like nowadays. So Contreras wasn't available tonight. He'll be available next Monday, so plan on that. We'll see if Claire's able to join us as well. So I want to start with, let's just read this exception. So we're focused on swinging gate. Obviously, this rule could be applied in some other areas, but let's just read through this on first, second, or third down. So it's anything except fourth down and a try. So first, second, third down. So we're probably somewhere in the middle of the field. When A sets or shifts into a scrimmage kick formation, which means they've got a punter back to catch the ball at beyond 10 yards deep, or a snapper holding the ball at 7 yards. That's the scrimmage kick formation. So it says the snapper may be, I'll just say, a non-lineman number, okay? He doesn't have to be 50 through 79. And then it says, if the team has a snapper in the game in this exception, he must also be accompanied by 4 other guys that are 50 to 79. And he must be between the ends and is ineligible to catch a forward pass. Okay, so this is different than the thing we normally see at the try space at the or a punt situation. This is first, second, third down. You can have a snapper that has an eligible number, but he's ineligible by position. He cannot go out for a pass on first, second, third down in this scenario. So he's got to be covered up if he's got an ineligible number. I'm sorry. He's got to be covered up if he has an eligible number. So on first, second, third down, the snapper cannot catch a ball. Let me go to the answer here. Okay. He cannot catch the ball. He's ineligible by position, even though he's in there as a snapper. Okay. So now we're going to go to fourth down or a try. So that's exception number 2, fourth down or a try. When Ace sets or shifts into that scrimmage kick formation, all the A players can be numbered whatever they want. There's a numbering exception. We no longer have to have the snapper with the eligible number between ends. He can be on the end of the line. And he can catch a pass if he has an eligible number. Okay, so if he is eligible on fourth down or a try by number, and he's at the end of his line, which makes him eligible by position, he is eligible to catch a pass. Okay? I'm going to pause there. We good with that? So there's a difference between first, second, and third down and fourth down or a try. So I'm not sharing anything yet, am I? Here's my sharing. Go ahead, Scott. Jump in there anytime.
So the one thing I want to emphasize with this is both of these situations are talking about when they're actually using the exception. So if like even in first, second, or third down, if they have 5 players with lineman numbers, the snapper can still be eligible on the end if he's wearing an eligible number. So this is only talking about a situation where they only have 4 lineman numbers and the snapper can be the exception. So I just want to point that out, that just because it's first, second, or third down doesn't mean that the snapper can never be eligible. It just depends on if they have enough on the line.
Hey, Scott,
I
I want to read something to you real quick here. Yeah, I think, Kirk, you're going to do it. Go ahead, Kirk.
So, Scott, it says the snapper in the game under this exception must be between the ends and is ineligible.
Right. The exception.
But you're saying if they've got
having
5, you're saying if they've got 5 on his left, he's okay.
Yeah, because the exception it's talking about is having 4 players wearing numbers 50 to 79, because the regular rule is having 5 players numbered 50 to 79. And so the exception is during first, second, or third down, they can have 4 players wearing 50 to 79. The snapper can be wearing an eligible number, but if that's going to happen and they're only going to have 4 of these lineman numbers, the snapper has to be in between he can't be on the end of the line. So it's talking about the exception to the normal rules. If they're playing with people with 5 linemen, which is the regular rule of 725B, then the exceptions you don't have to worry about. The exceptions are just exceptions to those numbering rules. You're not going to see it a whole lot on first, second, and third down anyway, but I just wanted to make a note on that if you see it in some weird situation, maybe the end of the game, they might try to do some weird swinging gate field goal. Something else.
There are some teams that they, and this is the time of year I like to talk about this, because there's some teams I've seen in the metro area that they've kind of given up on their season, so they're into gimmick football. And we had one year where the team just said, we're going to snap every down in a swinging gate formation, and it was a disaster. They had no success at all, but it was like their way of trying to gain some yards with gimmick because they couldn't do it any other way. So
yeah,
let's go with what Scott said there. If they've got 5 linemen, the eligible snapper can be on the end of the line and go out for a pass.
Right. As long as they have 5 that have those lineman numbers, and the snapper can be somebody else. So yeah, I don't know how often you see it, but it's something I wanted to point out, that's an exception because they're playing with 1 less lineman in that situation.
All right, so let's go with it. So here we've got the normal swinging gate formation. This is pretty standard. One of the keys to correctly doing a scrimmage or a swinging gate is that the snapper must have his shoulders parallel to the goal line. He cannot be tipped to the side. And the reason snappers or coaches think that their snapper can tip their shoulders so it opens up their stance is he can, and I got a picture of this in one of these later clips, he can snap that ball directly to number 4 right here. He does not have to go between his legs to snap it to number 4 in this scenario. So it is legal for him to directly snap to 4. He's not doing it here. I'll show you one later. But this is just your standard formation for a swinging gate. I am a proponent of asking the head coach, when you ask, do you run any trick plays, blah, 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 and maybe some of you know teams that run the swinging gate after they score a touchdown. I think it's always good to say, do you run the swinging gate? Sometimes the coach goes, oh, great, you asked. We just put it in this week. If that's the case, then they're probably not very good at it. Even more important to pregame it, talk about it with the crew. But one of the big things, if you're new to officiating high school football in Colorado, we have a different mechanic if they're in swinging gate formation. If they tell us that they're going to be in the swinging gate, we want both of our wings to stay at the line of scrimmage. And it's because if they run it out of this, we really need the goal line covered. And so we want our umpires, just as this umpire is set up, they're not in kicking formation. So there's no chance, there's not even a tee on the ground. So no need to stay under the post. Go ahead and work your position as an umpire. If they shift, let's see if these guys shift into formation. They don't. He runs the ball like normal play. I'm disappointed here with this crew. I've got one wing crashing in to find where the ball is. The other one comes in like, I don't have a clue. Or maybe he signaled touchdown before he ever comes in here. But anytime we're on that money line, we need to come in strong. Again, maybe he saw it, signaled it from a distance. But the way he comes in here and everybody's still kind of looking around to see what happened, we need to be more decisive. If wings, you don't have a score, we want you to come in just like on any scrimmage down with stop the clock signal, even though the clock is not running, and then the white hat will signal no good. But if you don't have him in the end zone, you come in strong with an arm up as if you're starting the play clock. Looking across the field, if the other wing doesn't have him in the end zone, then the white hat's going to turn and signal no good to the press box. We do not want a signal of no good from the wings in this case if he didn't get in. I'm not positive whether he got in or not. Okay. Back this one up. So here's another swinging gate. We are assumed to be in a try formation from the 3-yard line. Wings, think about this. We've got the umpire under the post. It's just like the money line situation. If we were snapping it, 4th and goal from the 3, get to the goal line. No reason to not move to the goal line at the snap here, head linesman. So here we've got a pass to the snapper who has an eligible number 45. As long as he was on the end of the line and not covered up, he is eligible to catch this pass. And he could be fouled with a pass interference. Did I hear somebody chime in with a question? Matt, can you field those questions
Kirk,
for me?
I was just going to ask Kirk real quick. In these last two formations, we pointed out that this is not a scrimmage kick formation. The quarterback is not 10, or the player to receive the snap is not 10 yards back with another player 3 yards behind him. So this does not qualify as a scrimmage kick formation. Therefore, we still have to have 5 eligible numbers on the line, or ineligible numbers on the line.
I was thinking that in a try and 4th down,
And we have 4.
and they have 5. So assuming they have 5 over here, this guy can still be number 45, correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they have 5 players between 50 and 79, this is fine. But if they do not, if they're using that snapper as an exception, they don't qualify for that exception because they did not set or shift into a scrimmage kick formation.
Correct. And so they only have 4 linemen in this play, numbered 50 to 79.
You can see all of them.
Yeah, if you play just a little bit longer, you can see the receiver on the left end. He goes out. This receiver on the close end, he comes back, and you have the 4 big guys right there. And that's all they have.
Yeah, it would make sense that they didn't bring an extra big guy in just to be a dummy on that line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I know I've seen sometimes on those swinging gates where the teams that really know the rules a little better, and I can't think of any specifics because it's been a while, but where they'll actually, even when they line up like that original lineup, they'll have somebody 7 yards back with his knee on the ground, even though it's obvious that if they're going to snap it, they're not going to kick out of that, just so that they can meet the definition of a scrimmage kick formation.
Right,
So
to get the exception.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't have to even plan on kicking there. The formation is just based on where they have their players. So if that back right behind the quarterback was standing, maybe a couple yards forward with his knee on the ground, it might be cutting it close to the 7, but it's starting to get there. So they can make it work. This one isn't one where it does, but I think that's a good point that Ken brought up, is that we got to still count those numbers.
Yeah, it's almost like this guy right here would have to be a lineman number, and I don't think he is. I think he's like number 18 or something.
Yeah.
He looks like a small guy. But is Beltran correct in that even on fourth down and a try, you still have to be in scrimmage kick formation to get that exception?
Exactly,
Yes.
because it says when A sets or shifts into a scrimmage kick formation, so they have to either initially start there. If they were to line up like this, then shift and actually kick it, they'd be fine. But if they don't have that 4 there, they're not set or shifted into scrimmage kick formation, so the exception doesn't apply.
And that would make 40 or the center ineligible.
He'd still be eligible. They would just not meet the numbering requirement, being an illegal numbering, which is basically the same thing as illegal formation. He's an eligible receiver because he's got a legal number. He's on the end of the line. It's just they don't have enough on the line, so we have an illegal formation, which is different because it doesn't create a loss of down if he's the one that catches the ball.
Gotcha. So when does it lock in? If they were to shift, say 45, the center here doesn't put his hand on the ball and he has a guard and a tackle on his right and guard tackle on his left, and then they shift into the scrimmage, into the swinging gate, when do they lock in that he's in between the ends? Is it when he touches the ball, or is it?
I think the way I've heard it described is when he touches the ball is when you have to have the in between the ends, or the ineligibility of the center. So if he's I think that was more for first through third downs. I'd have to look. I don't want to comment on that until I can try to figure it out.
Correct. You're correct. That was my point, was they could shift into something, but the center can't touch the ball, or the snapper can't touch the ball and be eligible until after they and then he can go down and touch the ball and still be eligible.
Yeah,
he's not locked in.
Yeah, I think what would happen is like if they were to do kind of a reverse kind of thing where he's in the middle, he touches the ball and they shift out of that, where it gets weird.
Yep.
Well, because this is a live ball foul, don't they have an opportunity to then shift another player back over to the other side to cover him? Because this is not a dead ball foul, so simply putting his hand on the ball doesn't lock him in, does it?
I think the locking in is only for when you're trying to figure out this exception, and I need to look and see. That's talking. I think that, like I said, I'd have to go look and see where I've read this, because I think I remember seeing George put something in one of those bulletins about this once, but it was about basically he puts his hand on the ball and then they shift so that he's on the end. Once his hand is on the ball, if he was ineligible when he put his hands on the ball, he's going to stay ineligible even if they shift so that he's on the end afterwards.
Correct.
So it
locks in his eligibility,
right?
When he puts
right, and now if he's eligible when he puts his hand on the ball and then they shift into a kick formation, covering him up can make him ineligible again. But I think it's more of the reverse. Is once he's like kind of declared ineligible by being in the middle when he touches the ball, he cannot become eligible later by them shifting.
That makes sense.
All right, I'm going to pull you guys back in. That's way too in the weeds for what we want to do. All right, so here is what I wanted to point out here, and I'm going to admit this is me as an umpire. So we are in swinging gate formation right here. Umpires, go ahead and get in position. There will be plenty of time to move under the post, but don't worry about the post until it's time to worry about the post, and that is when they shift. Now, in my defense here, I think the coach said we never kick out of it, which is probably means they're going to kick out of it on the first time they do it, because coaches lie to us. But here, this is a case where the field goal was blocked, and we've now got no good. Once that ball hits the end zone, anytime it goes past the goal line, we want to signal no good. All right, here's another one. Get this backed up here. Again, we're not in, oh, this is the one I wanted to point out, and we're not in scrimmage kick formation, are we? We still don't have a knee on the ground ready to receive the ball, and we're not back 10 plus yards for a punter. So here you can see, it's kind of hard to tell, but here's the ball. It's already been snapped, but this snapper snaps it straight to this up back, and that is legal. As long as his shoulders were parallel to the goal line at the snap. But he can take this ball and snap it straight over to this side, and a rush behind those big linemen. We got a signal from our wing. Touchdown is good. So it's another thing that they can do with the swinging gate. They can toss that to that up back, which is probably pretty typical. That's either that or throwing it to the snapper, or two of the major plays out of this. All right, here's one I want to look at with you all. So this is obviously not a try, and I will tell you that this number on the box is a 3. So we are in exception A, not exception B of the rule book. Okay. So we're going to shift out of a regular formation into not a scrimmage kick formation. So there's no numbering exception allowed right here. I think that's what we've established. They're not in scrimmage kick formation, so the numbering exception is not allowed. You can see they throw it to the snapper. Problem is right here. I'm going to stop it right. Let me back it up here. See it?
52.
See the snapper's number? He's number 52. Is there ever a situation where 52 can catch this ball without it being tipped? The answer is no. So it doesn't matter. This whole numbering exception issue doesn't matter. He just threw it to an ineligible player because he's got number 52 on his jersey. So this should have come back. We'll see it again. So they shift. They may have all their numbers correct, and they can snap this ball, but they cannot throw it to 52. That's the only problem with this, which is a major problem. They could have thrown it to the wideout. They could have done this exact play. They just have to get that ball in the hands of somebody that's actually eligible. If they're going to pass it, they could toss it to 20. Number 7 can run it. Everything's legal here until they threw it to number 52.
Scott raised his hands, Kirk.
Go ahead. Is that Lewis?
Yeah. So, and this isn't really rules specific as much as something I've started doing when I've been either the wing or the back judge going underneath. Is I know that we've often gotten in the habit of saying who our eligibles are on the end, like 42-14. What I've kind of started doing more.
Hold on, Scott. I think that's good. I don't know that a lot of areas around the state do this. So go ahead and talk through. I think that's a good addition to tonight.
So, yeah. So what a lot of people do is when they're getting, mostly for field goals or tries, they'll say, I've got 42-14, and the other wing will say, I've got 22-16 or whatever. I actually kind of go the other way. Is I look at those interior linemen who are wearing eligible numbers, and those are the ones I want to remember, because those are the ones that are ineligible by rule, because they're now ineligible by being interior. And the reason I do that is because ineligible numbers, they're never going to be eligible no matter what we do. So it doesn't matter where they're standing. If they're eligible and they're on the end, that's the normal rule anyway. It's those numbers in the middle that are using that numbering exception, the ones that we have to remember, because they're the ones that if 26 is in interior lineman and he catches the pass, we need to know that 26 was not eligible. And I found a lot of times there's less to remember when you're trying to remember who's ineligible than trying to remember all 6 eligible numbers that you might have out there. Everyone can do it different. I know that the way that a lot of crews do it is just calling out their ends. I'm just saying I do it this way because that way it emphasizes that numbering exception. These are the people who are acting as interior linemen while wearing an eligible number, that these are the ones who cannot catch the ball.
That's a great point, Scott. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit more. Is where we're going to see that is in actual punting formations, and they have a fire play. And you have a receiver that's a snapper, that's an interior lineman, and all of a sudden it's a broken play, and everybody's going out for passes. You have linemen downfield, and all of a sudden this 22 catches a pass, and everybody's going, "Where does this kid come from?" And it turns out he was a snapper.
I will say to the audience, I'm a big fan of, and I'm an umpire, so I go underneath the post rarely, but I do like calling out the only receivers on each side of the ball. That way I only have two numbers, and I can say to myself, those are likely the ones that are going to go out for a pass. If it's not those two, and it's not my fellow post judge, I mean, it just kind of said, if anything, it gives you an idea of what we're thinking about, who's eligible and who's not eligible, whether you take the lineman out or say, I identify these. I think either way you do it is valuable to the fire play situation. So here we're gonna come out of the huddle. We're gonna get in formation, and now we're gonna shift out of it. So here you can see the umpire moving over to the, I don't know that that's necessary to be that far over, but they are not in a legal kick formation. So all linemen, or you have to have 5 lineman numbers. And I think they did. That's how they started. And here we actually have illegal shift because they weren't all set. They're still going down at the snap. And so anytime you try some of this trickery, we always say they've got to be perfect at it. We can't be, there's no lenience. They got to be perfect. And so they had linemen that hadn't shifted or got down in a stance in time. Not sure why they've left it. So we've got an illegal shift. Shouldn't be declined because that should have been oh no, that would be declined because they didn't score. So that's a live ball foul. So we're good there. All right, I've got a couple more. Let's look at this one. So here the quarterback runs. Everybody's looking at each other like who's got the score. So I actually think this might be, now that I look at it a little bit more, I think we're out of position. I think this is a case where they surprised us, and this is why we moved the umpire underneath the post. So here we've got the near wing official under the post. We've given the referee and the umpire the job of the goal line and the pylon in this case. And here we've got the problem that exists. Did he get in the end zone? The referee says, do you have him in? Who's got him in? The umpire says, I think he was in. I'm not sure. Because this wing right here was under the post. If we left him on this pylon and put the umpire under the post, we'd have the goal line covered. And that's a critical piece here. That's why we talk about this in pregame. If they're going to possibly run that gate, we want the umpire to go under the post so that our goal line is covered on both sides. Another one. Let's see what happens on this one. 2 passes, a backward pass, and then a forward pass. Again, we want our umpire underneath the post. Or not, I guess he wouldn't be completely under the post at this point because they haven't shifted into a scrimmage kick formation. So this looks like an 8-man game. 2, 4, 6, 8-man. There's an 8-man game, so there is no number restriction for 8-man. So this is a free-for-all. Backward pass, forward pass. If anything, I don't want the umpire on the goal line when I've got wings in position. But no need to be underneath the post if they don't have somebody that's going to catch a snap to kick the ball. So I like the umpire's position here. Only I don't want him on the goal line. Never want the umpire to stand on the goal line. Get off the goal line if you're an umpire. All right, that's it for my film for tonight. Let's see, how are we doing on, are they back on the field, Beltran?
Yeah, we're back. We're already like a few minutes in.
Couple minutes in. All right, that's all I got for tonight. Were there any questions on the chat that somebody could help answer?
I did not see any.
All right. All right. We're going to call it a night. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you got something out of the swinging gate. Review that rule for your pregame this week. Help out your crew members in case you got it. Have a good night, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Night, everyone.